Actually saw get killed were behind the wheel of a vehicle, usually a taxi driver. I've been present for almost a dozen of those types of people that got killed just driving. During my third deployment, there was a rule in place where all Iraqi traffic had to pull off of the road to let military convoys pass by. If they didn't comply, or somebody got back on the road too early, they would get shot up. If they approached a checkpoint too fast or too recklessly, they would get shot up. Also, we were often told to be on the lookout for vehicle-borne IEDs, improvised explosive devices, matching the description of every taxi in Iraq. You know, be on the lookout for a car that has orange panel doors and, front that's white, or, vice versa. And it's like every taxi in Iraq, that's exactly what it looks like. And those are the cars that we're supposed to be looking out for that could be, VBIEDs. And so quite a few of those guys got shot up just because their car looked like what we were told to look out for. In another instance, it was actually a mayor of a town in our AO near Haditha that got shot. Our command showed us pictures from the incident. They had gathered the whole company together, and they were showing pictures of all of this, what everything looked like, and pointed out the reason that they did this was because there was a really nice, tight shot group in the windshield, and he announced to the company that this is what good Marine shooting looks like. And that was the mayor of the town. And it was actually my squad that was after that tasked with going to apologize to the family and pay reparations. But it was kind of like, basically all we did was go there and, give them some money and then leave. And, oh well, is, the way, it seemed they wanted us to apologize to them. It was really a joke. Something else we were actually encouraged to do, almost with a wink and a nudge, was to carry drop weapons, or by my third tour, drop shovels. What that basically is we would carry these weapons or shovels with us because in case we accidentally did shoot a civilian, we could just toss the weapon on the body and make them look like they were an insurgent. Or, like my friend here was saying, we were told by my third tour that if they were carrying a shovel or, in a heavy bag, if they were digging anywhere, especially near roads, that we could shoot them. And so we actually carried these, tools and weapons in our vehicles in case we accidentally shot an innocent civilian, and we could just toss it on there and be like, well, he was digging. I was within the rules of engagement. And this was commonly encouraged, but only behind closed doors. It wasn't obviously a public announcement that they would make. Yeah, it was pretty common.
Corporal Jason Washburn speaking at Winter Soldier this weekend in Silver Spring, Maryland. Jason Washburn served 3 tours in Iraq from 2003 to 2006. He took part in the invasion, was deployed in the cities of Najaf and Haditha. Speaking on the same panel was former Marine Sergeant Jason Lemieux.
My name is Jason Wayne Lemieux, and I'm a member of Iraq Veterans Against the War. I served 4 years and 10 months in the United States Marine Corps Infantry and was honorably discharged with the rank of Sergeant. During my time in the Marine Corps, I served 3 deployments to Iraq, including the invasion. And in case any inquiring minds want to know, I served 4 years and 10 months because I voluntarily extended my enlistment contract by 10 months to redeploy with my unit for the 3rd tour. My first tour started in January 2003 and ended in September of that year. My second tour was from February to September of 2004, and my last tour was from September 2005 to March 30th, 2006. Proper rules of engagement serve an important strategic purpose, which is to legitimize military force. By projecting an image of restraint and professionalism, militaries seek to reinforce the idea that they're protecting local residents rather than oppressing them. Not only do these rules undermine support for any local opposition, they also deflect accusations of occupation and oppression from foreign countries and in some cases the people of the country the military is supposedly serving. Martin van Creveld, who was an Israeli military historian, even asserted some years ago that the British had not yet been driven from Northern Ireland because they were taking more casualties than the Irish were. The US, on the other hand, has not chosen to use rules of engagement in the same way in Iraq. The rules of engagement have been broadly defined and loosely enforced to protect US service members at the expense of the Iraqi people, and anyone who tells you different is either a liar or a fool. During the invasion of Iraq, during the push north to Baghdad, the rules of engagement given to me were gradually reduced to the point of non-existence, similar to the cases that you've already heard. When we first crossed the Kuwait-Iraq border at Az-Zubair in March 2003, we were operating under Geneva Convention guidelines and were authorized to shoot anyone wearing a military uniform, except for medical and religious personnel, unless they had surrendered. By the time we got to Baghdad, however, I was explicitly told by my chain of command that I could shoot anyone who came closer to me than I felt comfortable with if that person did not immediately move when I ordered them to do so, keeping in mind I don't speak Arabic. The general attitude that I got from my chain of command was better them than us, and the guidance that we were given reinforced that attitude across the ranks. It was an attitude that I watched intensify greatly throughout the course of my 3 tours. I remember in January of 2004 attending the formation where we were given what was going to be our mission for the second deployment. And I was sitting there like a good Marine with my pen and paper, ready to write down those carefully chosen, thoughtful words that would justify my existence in Iraq for the next 7 months. And my commander told me that our mission was, and I quote, to kill those who need to be killed and save those who need to be saved. And that was it. And with those words, he pretty much set the tone for the deployment. At the start of that second deployment, our standing rules of engagement were that someone had to be displaying hostile intent and committing a hostile act before deadly force could be used. I won't get into the absurdity of asking one to discern what is going on in the mind of another individual, except to say that it was the individual Marine's job to determine what is hostile intent and a hostile action. However, during the April offensive of 2004, in which attacks erupted all over Anbar province, my unit was involved in a 2-day firefight. Shortly after the firefight was underway, the same commander who had given us the mission issued an order that everyone wearing a black dishdasha and a red headscarf was automatically displaying hostile intent and a hostile action and was to be shot. An hour or 2 later, he gave another order, this time that everyone on the streets was considered an enemy combatant. I can remember one instance after the order was given that afternoon when we came around a corner and an unarmed Iraqi man stepped out of a doorway. I remember the Marine directly in front of me raising his rifle and aiming at the unarmed man, and then I think just for some psychological reason my brain blocked out the actual shots, because the next thing I remember is stepping over the dead man's body to clear the room that he came out of. I remember that it was a storage room, and it was full of some Arabic brand of Iraq, or some Arabic brand of cheesy poofs, like Cheetos. There weren't any weapons in the area except for ours. The commander told us a couple of weeks later that over 100 enemy, quote-unquote, had been killed, and to the best of my knowledge, that number includes all of the people who were shot for simply walking down the street in their own city. After the firefight was over, the standing rules of engagement for my unit were changed so that Marines didn't need to identify a hostile action anymore in order to use deadly force. They just had to identify hostile intent. The rules also explicitly stated that carrying a shovel, standing on a rooftop while speaking on a cell phone or holding binoculars, or being out after curfew were automatically considered hostile intent, and we were authorized to use deadly force. And I can only guess how many innocent people died during my tour because of those orders. On my third tour, the rules of engagement were stricter, but they really only existed so that the command could say there were rules of engagement that were being followed. In reality, my officers explicitly told me and my fellow Marines that if we felt threatened by an Iraqi's presence, we should just shoot them, and the officers would, quote-unquote, take care of us. By this time, many of the Marines who were on their second or third tour had suffered such serious psychological trauma, having watched friends die and lose limbs, that because of these experiences, they were moved to shoot people who, in my opinion, were clearly non-combatants. There was one incident when a roadside bomb exploded, and a few minutes later, I watched a Marine start shooting at cars that were driving down the street hundreds of meters away and in the opposite direction from where the IED had exploded. We were too far away to identify who was in the cars, and they didn't pose any threat to us. And for all I could tell, as I was standing about 20 meters away from the Marine and about 300 meters from the cars, they were just passing motorists.